Hello everyone, it's me Uncle John. Today I am going to read S5 5083. Belmuni, it's not my fault. Stop blaming me for everything. The clock goes too fast. Mornings were bad in Kitty's home. Dad rushed about telling Kitty to hurry up in the bathroom, and Daniel called down that he couldn't find his game shorts. And where had Mom put them? Mom tried to shovel baby food into Tom's mouth with one hand while pushing Kitty's bread in the toaster with the other. And all the time, the hands of the clock on the kitchen wall raced round as if someone had shouted, "Ready, steady, go." It wasn't a jolly time of day. On this particular morning, it was worse than ever. The noise was so bad that baby Tom finally decided he would quieten them all by making much more than himself. Kitty looked at the angry red circle of his mouth and wondered if there was a giant dummy you could buy as a plug. "Daniel, if you don't get a move on, I'll be late for work," shouted Dad over the cries. At last, Dad and Dan rushed out. Kitty watched them from the step while she waited for Mom. Clunk went the car doors. The broom rolled the engine as Dad put it into reverse. Then scrape! The side of the car made a sickening sound as it slid along the gatepost. "Oh dear," said Kitty. Dad and Dan got out to look at the damage. What Dad shouted wasn't very nice at all. To put it politely, he said the accident was all Daniel's fault for making him rush. "It's not my fault. You're a bad driver," muttered Daniel. "What did you say?" roared Dad, his face as red as a tomato. "Nothing," said Dan very quickly. They set off again, and Kitty went back into the house. These days, William's mother walked him and Kitty to school on her way to work, but William was off with a cold. So Kitty waited while Mom fussed over Tom, wiping his mouth, brushing the few bits of fluff she called his hair, then zipping him into his padded suit. It all seemed to take forever. She looked for his woolly hat, then got the pushchair out. She was so much slower since she had Tom. "Oh, hurry up, Mom," Kitty whined. "You jolly well make sure you got all you need for school," snapped Mom, trying to put Tom's mittens on, while he waved his little fat hands about like windmills. At last they were on their way. Mom kept glancing at her watch and walked faster and faster, so that the wheels of the pushchair whirled around and Kitty had to run to keep up. When they came near school, Kitty realized there were no children walking along the street. "Oh, Mom, we are really late," she moaned. It was true. At the school gate, Mom kissed her and gave a little push, saying, "Hurry up now, dear." "That's all very well," thought Kitty as she ran across the empty yard. "But if Mom hadn't been fussing over that baby, I wouldn't have had to hurry at all." All the other children were in their seats when she ran into the classroom to find Mrs. Watson glaring at her. "Do you know what the time is, Kitty?" she asked. "No, 'cause I haven't got a watch," said Kitty sweetly. "Don't be so cheeky, but it's true." "Well, if you had a watch, maybe you wouldn't be so late," said the teacher crossly. "It was baby Tom's fault I was late," Kitty muttered. The children laughed, and even Mrs. Watson smiled just a bit. "Well, Kitty, even for you, that's a good one. Blaming a little baby for making you late." It got worse. Kitty opened her school bag to discover she had forgotten her storybook. For homework, they had to make up an ending for the story Mrs. Watson had started reading them, and drew a picture too. Kitty liked doing that and had taken a long time. "Well, Kitty," said the teacher, I only forgot it because Mom was making me rush," wailed Kitty, feeling as if she wanted to cry. "Are you sure it wasn't the baby's fault?" Mrs. Watson asked with that funny smile. Kitty didn't like it at all. "It was Mom and the baby's fault," said Kitty in her sulkiest voice. As the lesson went on, she found herself thinking, in an odd part of her mind, that it was William's fault as well. If he hadn't been such a whim to stay off school with a little cold, then his mom would have collected her on time, and then all this wouldn't have happened. Another little voice in her mind reminded her that there'd been plenty of time to remember her own storybook, and that mom had even reminded her to check she had everything she needed. But she told it to go away and be quiet. All day, Kitty felt out of sorts, as if she were a cat and someone had stroked her for the long way. She made a list of all the things that were wrong. Baby Tom cried too much most of the time. Daniel took ages to find these things and made Dad bad-tempered. The silly gate was too narrow for the car. Mom fussed so over the baby. You'd think she'd never had one before. William always let her down. Mrs. Watson made everything worse by not listening. All the other children, even her best friend Rosie and Anita, wore those goody-goody faces when she got into trouble. It simply wasn't fair. It made her feel miserable, and what's more, Kitty knew that none of it was her fault. Mom was outside the school gate at the end of the long afternoon, and both she and Tom had big grins on their faces. "What's the good news?" asked Kitty without a smile. "Nothing. We just went to the park and had a nice time, and Tom saw some ducks, and I'm sure he tried to make a good cracky sound. Didn't you, my little pet?" Cooed Mom. "Ga, ga, 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 gag," said Tom. "There you are," cried Mom. The smile so wide it seemed the face might split. "Don't be silly, Mom. That's his usual stupid baby talk, that's all," said Kitty coldly. "Listen to this." Tom said, "Quack, quack, quack. Ba, 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 ba," said Tom. Kitty laughed scornfully. Mom looked hurt as well as irritated and jerked the pushchair as they turned to walk home. Baby Tom didn't like that at all, and his smile disappeared. After walking in silence for a while, Kitty asked, "Well, did Dad ring you up and tell you about the car then?" "What about the car?" "He scraped it along the gate post this morning when he was backing out. Of course, he said it was all Dan's fault for making him rush, even though Dan wasn't driving. Great big scratch on the side. Bit surprising he didn't tell you." Mom stopped in her tracks. "Oh no, that means another great big garage bill, and we simply can't afford it. The bang goes that new cooker we were saving for. Oh, just wait till I see him." Kitty started to feel bad in a different way. She wished she had mentioned the car, especially when Dad drove home from work and there was no sign of the scratch. "What is it?" Mom demanded. "What is what?" asked Dad. "The damage to the side of the car, of course." "Then I thought we had made a pact," said Dad. "I didn't say anything." Dan protested. "Kitty," they both said. "Of course you told me," shouted Mom. "I think it's really sneaky of you to go and get it fixed behind my back. Think you could get away with it?" She flounced into the sitting room and slammed the door. Kitty wished she could shrink to the size of a flea and disappear in Sandy the hamster's fur. That side. "If you must know, Kitty, I didn't want your mom to get upset. She gets so tired with Tom waking up so early and everything. I took it along to old Petey in the body shop, and he did it for me quickly as a favor. Special, cheap rate too. Now Mom's cross, Kitty, and it's all your fault," said Dan. "No, it's not," shouted Kitty, so she ran up to her bedroom. Slamming the door, after a few minutes, she heard the sound of voices talking quietly in the sitting room below. Then she took Mr. Tubbs to look out of the window, and saw Dan carrying Tom round the back garden, pointing up at the trees. The house felt peaceful suddenly, as if all the shouting of the day had never happened. At last she went downstairs to find Mom and Dad in the kitchen chopping vegetables. "Both of you," Kitty began in a small voice. "It's all right, love. It wasn't your fault. I scraped the car, smiled Dad. It was my fault. You were late for school and got cross, said Mom, giving her a hug. I didn't make Dad get in a state, said Dan. Coming in through the kitchen door with the baby, who was gurgling happily. I know whose fault it all is, cried Kitty. Whose? They all asked together. Kitty glared up at the wall and wagged a finger. It's that silly old clock for going too fast. That I'm getting older. One Saturday morning, Dad woke up in such a good mood, you'd think he had won the lotto. He sang in the bathroom in his silliest, squeakiest voice. He jogged into the kitchen, gave Mom a massive hug, and called her his gorgeous friend. And even though her eyes were puffy and her hair stuck up all over the place, it made her giggle, which made Tom a chortle too. What's wrong with you, Dad? Asked Kitty. Such a beautiful day out there, and so I'm going to cook breakfast for everyone, he grinned. What a good idea, said Mom. Great, said Daniel. Good, said Pam. I'm not sure if I feel like it, said. Spoiled sport, says Dad, sticking his lips out in a silly expression like a little boy. Soon the sound and smell of a sizzling filled the house, and secretly Kitty was sorry she had said no. It just happened sometimes. The word no slipped out before she could stop it, and then she had to put up with what happened next. Sometimes she thought how good it would be if words danced about in front of your eyes for a few minutes before anyone could hear them. Then you'd have the chance to grab them and put them back where they came from if you changed your mind. She took a piece of toast, wandered into the sitting room, and put the TV on. It helped to ignore the smell of bacon and the sound of laughter. They came from the kitchen. There was another thing Kitty was starting to realize, that when you said no, it sometimes made you feel lonely. After a while, she decided to telephone Rosie to see what she was planning to do that day. Rosie was still in bed, but her big sister Sarah told Kitty that a couple of girls who lived in the street were coming round later to watch TV. Sarah was going to play them a new CD and let them try some of her makeup, and maybe even her clothes. Why don't you come over? Sarah suggested. Rosie would love that. Kitty was thrilled and said yes right away. She felt sure that either Mom or Dad would be glad to take her over to Rosie's house. She returned to the TV program, feeling very cheerful and looking forward to the rest of the day. Not long afterwards, Dad strolled into the room, followed by Mom and baby Tom. Hey, Kit Kat, I've got a great idea for today, he said. Dad wants to take you out for a trip because Dan is off to play football. I've decided to go to Auntie Sue's with Tom, so for coffee and a chat, Mom explained. What treat? Mumbled Kitty, hardly taking her eyes from the screen. But the band she liked was playing its latest hit song. That picked up the remote control and zapped the TV up. Come on, oh square eyes, you and I are going out on a magical mystery tour. What? Where? I've decided we all go down memory lane. Remember when you were little? What your favorite place was? Kitty shook her head, but she did remember a few special times Dad had taken her to Porlock Park, not far away, just outside the next town. It was a special place dedicated to children, with a small playground, a cafe, and a museum of toys and childhood. There were all toys you could make work by pressing buttons, dolls as well as dolls' houses, a collection of ancient teddy bears, which you used to think Mr. Tubbs liked to see, and so on. When she was little, she thought it the best place in the world, and the fact that she and Dad were on their own made it better. Was Porlock Park silly? You can bring Mr. Tubbs, smiled Dad, as if he was reading Kitty's mind. Oh, Dad, what? I would hardly cart my teddy around now, would I? Well, there's no law about that. Anyway, go and get ready. We'll drop Mom or Sue's. We'll drop Mom at Sue's and go on from there. You can even go on the carousel. In fact, we'll get enormous ice creams and bus ride the horses. As if snipped the kitty. Why not? It's babish. Who cares? Asked Dad. People would think you're daft, said Kitty, shaking her head. What people? Any people. So what? Shrugged Dad. In any case, I can't come with you, Kitty said firmly, folding her arms. Why not? Kitty didn't look up. She didn't want to see Dad's face. She just muttered, I found Rosie when you were all having your breakfast, and she's invited me over there. Oh, what for? In a voice Kitty knew well, I said, I don't think you're being very nice, and in a minute I'm going to get cross. We're going to watch TV, then play CDs, and I said we can try on her makeup and stuff like that. Kitty said, oh, is that all? Snorted Mom. It'll be fun. I thought you'd be pleased with my idea. Yes, said Dad in a voice so small it nearly got lost in his throat. Just then Baby Tom made a very funny noise and Mom sniffed the air. Oh dear, she said. Pooh, said Kitty with an attempt at a smile, but Mom didn't smile back. She just looked at Dad and said, well, I hope you can sort something out. I go up and change Tom's nappy, then I'll be ready, love. When they were alone, Dad sat down in the armchair and patted his knee. Come and sit here, catfish, he said quietly. Kitty walked across the room and sat on the sofa just across from him. Oh, so you're too big and grown up to sit on my knee, is that it? He asked. Kitty nodded. Look outside, that's it. Kitty turned to stare out of the window. The morning sun made the whole world look golden. Birds sang as if they just learned a tune and wanted to practice. Somewhere in the street, children were playing a game and laughing. Tiny, fluffy white clouds chased each other across the blue sky. Now, do you really want to sit inside Rosie's house in front of the TV with a pile of girls putting makeup on when we can go out into such a lovely day? Dad asked. Kitty didn't know what to say. She wanted to say no this time, but instead the word that came out was yes. Dad gave a little sigh and tried to laugh. Now, kid, I'll make a bargain with you. I'll say that's fine. You can't go to Rosie's if you will come over here and sit on my knee for exactly 5 minutes, like you used to, okay? Without saying anything, Kitty got up and did as he asked. Of course, she knew that as soon as she nestled on Dad's knee, she would want to get up again, and the idea of the day out with him seemed nicer than ever. Dad, she said. Yes, kid? It's not my fault, you know. What? What isn't? It's not my fault that I'm getting older. Dad ruffled up a chair and smiled. Neither, he said. But on the other hand, it's not my fault that I still feel like a kid. Sometimes, is it? Kitty shook her head. So what shall we do? He asked. Maybe we should swap jobs. I mean, you be the kid and I'll be the grown-up. Well, then you have to look after me today, said Dad with a grin. Kitty said, oh, all right, as long as you are a good boy. So what do you want to do to keep you out of mischief? Dad pretended to jump up and down, making Kitty bounce too. I know, I want to go to Parlock Park. Can we do that, please? Kitty thought the word yes, but she smiled and said, we'll see, just like a grown-up. It got broken. Mom said that Kitty and Daniel had to look after baby Tom while she popped next door. William's mom is so good at knitting, and I really messed up this little jumper I was making for Tom. She said I need her to put me right. Oh, Mom, William was coming to play with me, moaned Kitty. All the better. That makes three of you to watch Tom. I want you all to stay in the sitting room, play together. Daddy's in bed with his cold, so I don't want you to make too much noise either. That's boring, muttered Man. The most boring thing in the world is children saying things are boring, retorted Mom. William arrived, his usual smile on his face. Kitty realized he was her happiest friend. Nothing seemed to put him in a bad mood. When she said they all had to look after the baby, he said, "That's okay." "No, it's not. I wanted to make a den at the bottom of the garden," said Kitty. "But it's raining," said William. "I suppose we could make one in the sitting room while we are looking after Tom," said Kitty slowly. Mom called that shouldn't be long. And Daniel came into the sitting room carrying the baby. When Kitty told her brother that they had decided to make a den, he grinned. Daniel always liked playing games. He pretended were much too young for him, just like Kitty liked to reread her first storybook with the very big print. "Oh, all right," sighed Dan. "I suppose I'll have to help you." He put Tom's little bouncy chair on the rock and fastened the baby in it. Tom waved his arms about and shouted excitedly, as if he knew something good was about to happen. "I know what we could do," said William. "Make a little house for Tom by pulling out the sofa and putting a tablecloth or something over." "And no chairs would be better," said Daniel. "You know, like we used to do, Kit. We could put the kitchen chairs each end of the sofa to hold the tablecloth," said Kitty thoughtfully. "Then how are we going to get him in there?" asked William. They looked round and talked some more and started to pull the sofa out. Baby Tom started to feel bored. Nobody was looking at him or waggling their fingers in his face and saying funny things, which is what he liked best. As far as he was concerned, nothing was happening, so he started to wave his arms about like windmills and kick his legs, all of which made him hotter and more uncomfortable. And that made him start to whimper. "Oh no," said Kitty. "What's the matter with him?" asked William. "Maybe he's got a pooey nappy. In which case, we'll have to change it, kid," grinned Daniel. "Why me? 'Cause you're a girl, and it's a girl's job." "Shouted that. What a lot of old-fashioned rubbish," shouted Kitty. Then changed his nappies there. She threw a cushion at her brother, but he ducked, and it went rolling over the rug and just touched Tom's leg. It was gentle, but the baby didn't like it one bit. "Well, look what you've done, Kitty," yelled Daniel. The end.